Good morning, Westeros!
And welcome to our Morning Throners podcast. I'm Nelson.
I'm Jeff.
I'm Glow.
And I'm Kyle.
We're the fucking Morning Throners.
All right, so we haven't said it in a while, and I've been re-listening to some of these podcasts to see how we're doing. And I noticed that we never mentioned like that we're about to do a non-spoiler section and a spoiler section. Should we start saying that? Like, all right, guys. So the first half of the section is safe to listen to if you've seen the show but not read the books.
If you're listening to us, you know how we roll.
You got to know how we roll.
Is that what
now.
we're just assuming, that nobody just jumps around in chapters? Because everybody starts somewhere, right?
If you're gonna listen to the Morning Throners podcast, you're gonna listen to it from start to finish.
Yeah,
If you're a bounce arounder, maybe we don't want you listening.
No, I'm just gonna say the first way I ever found any Game of Thrones podcast was I was reading a chapter, like maybe halfway through Clash, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on in this chapter? And I look up like an explanation of one chapter, and there's nothing there. Like there's no YouTube videos about that. So then I just go to a podcast who does episode by episode like us, find that chapter and listen to it. I'm like, oh, I like these guys, and then I'll start listening to them from the beginning. But every episode, people are coming in new somewhere.
Sure.
But I mean, the no spoilers part isn't warned, but you warn about the spoilers part, right? I don't.
Yeah, but the
listen to
thing
it,
is,
so
we
I don't
drop.
know,
But the thing is, we drop like some spoilers in the non-spoiler section based on the show.
Okay.
I'm saying, like, what if
Kinda.
somebody's listening to this and they're like, oh, it's a non-spoiler section, and they haven't seen the show, and then Kyle says,
Well, let's just go by this. Nobody's cursed us out yet by spoiling the biggest thing for them. So
I feel like we're about to make it big and get an influx of viewers, and I don't want to
The
start pissing
other
people
side,
off.
yeah, we're about to hit million views.
Huge.
all right, viewers, if you
Huge.
think we should declare what we're doing minute by minute, let us know, and we'll get more details.
I'll
But
just
right
have
now,
Jeff-
Hey
I'll send
guys,
Jeff
as
the-
normal format for the Morning Throners, we're going to start out with the non-spoiler section of Game of Thrones part, where we discuss the chapter, but we don't really discuss anything too far ahead. And then in the back end, we talk about spoilers, discuss further topics that happen later in the book.
all right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Morning Throners podcast. We're here talking Ned 2, that bad motherfucker from the north who's going south, and then at the end, me, Nelson, and Glow are going to do a little write-in discussion about Summerhall, which is pretty cool. Pretty
Thank
cool
you,
topic
at
in general.
Terrible Existence.
Yeah, good shout out to Terrible Existence.
We had to write it on Twitter, so we'll discuss that at the end after the normal spoiler section, right? That's the order we did that?
Correct.
All right.
All right,
So,
going in. Ned's
jumping right into
chapter.
Ned. Where are we?
Kyle.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't quite get that, honestly. That was going to be one of my questions for you guys.
We're on the King's Road.
Okay, so they're on the road is what's going on.
Yeah.
On the road again.
Sounds like
'cause
they camped up and now they're...
Yeah. Well,
And the thing
it's-
is, we don't really get a good relation of time, as in like how long this is after, like how many days have they been gone from Winterfell.
Time doesn't matter in Game of Thrones.
we get
I told you that.
we get one time relationship here, and it's to Dany. So this is the
Yeah.
first time Dany's storyline is tied in time wise to the main storyline, I guess you could say. Right?
Yeah, so she finally caught up on the storyline, right?
So you had said that all was happening like 3 months ahead, right?
Yeah,
so
like
then I
the
guess they've
two.
been on the road
Because think
for
about it,
3
the
months?
two chapters happen. The two Dany chapters happen before the prologue, two that we've already read, or maybe the second one's happening like right around the prologue, Bran 1. But she has to get married, have time for like information to get there to
Yeah.
across the narrow sea, right? I don't know if you can do the bird thing across the sea. I guess probably, right?
I don't know.
I guess so.
Like information
The
spreads.
Sending Ravens.
Yeah, this information spreads by either people traveling or ravens. Can you do ravens across the sea?
Yeah, no doubt
I
about
mean, it
it.
depends how far it is.
It's
Alright,
the
so-
narrow sea. You can
so-
throw a fucking rock across of it.
Then you have at least we have Raven time from there to King's Landing. King's Landing. I don't think you can. They say he comes by rider, right? Gets by
Yeah,
rider in
yeah.
the night. So then by rider from King's Landing to where they are, however far that is.
We'll say what do they say? A
So it's like
fortnight?
10 days.
fortnight.
Yeah, a fortnight. Maybe a fortnight later than the wedding, right? Is where this is taking place.
Fortnight.
A fortnight.
I think it was a fortnight.
All right. So yeah, that's the only timeline we really get. We don't really know any relation to Catelyn and them on this. Starts up. Ned's sleeping. Gets woken up at the ass crack of dawn. Robert's just howling at him, and who else is there? Sir Boros Blunt and Marin Trant of the Kingsguard, and like 12 other guards.
Alan. Alan's yelling at him.
Alan, yeah.
Alan!
That's like I guess like his steward or something, right?
Yeah, sounds like.
I'm
One
surprised.
of
I'm
Ned's
surprised, Nelson, you don't call him like Aline or something fucking stupid.
That guy's not important.
Align.
I didn't even have a note for that guy.
All right, moving on. Rob rides off really fast away from everybody.
Yeah, out into a field. And when they get there, they're like they kind of outran the guards a little bit, and they're just talking. Robert says they could just leave. They're like, let's just get it the hell out of here right away, not be king and hand anymore, and just be like two dudes.
Back to being boys.
On the road, tavern wenches to warm our beds. All that shit.
The best. The life.
You know what's the best about Robert in the show? Spoiler for show. Is that he'll just be like, oh, she had a great pair of tits.
Yeah.
He says it all the time.
I think that's
it's just like, no, he doesn't say. I don't think he says it.
Not in the
like
chapter, but
in
it's
the
like
show,
in
he
this
literally
scene
just says
in the
like
show,
tits.
yeah. He's like, oh, Betsy, she had a nice pair of tits.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Just like his deep like English accent or whatever accent it is. It's just funny.
Yeah, so I have a quote here. So Robert says they could like ride off, leave all their responsibilities behind. Ned says they can't, and they're not the boys they once were. And Robert says, you never were the boy you once were, which kind of sounds weird to say, but he's just saying Ned was always strict.
Never a child. Never had fun.
So then the next quote was, you were never the boy you were, Robert grumbled. More's the pity. And yet there was that one time. What was her name? That common girl of yours. Becca? No, she was one of mine. God's lover. Black hair and these sweet big eyes, you could drown in them. Yours was Alina. No, you told me once. Was it Meryl? You know the one I mean. Your bastard's mother. Her name was Wyla. Ned replied in cool courtesy. And I would sooner not speak of her. Wyla, yes. The
Definitely Willa. Get out of here.
She must have been a rare wench if she could make Lord Eddard Stark forget his honor, even for an hour. You never told me what she looked like. Ned's mouth tightened in anger. Nor will I. Leave it be, Robert, for the love you say you bear me. I dishonored myself, and I dishonored Catelyn in the sight of gods and men. Gods have mercy, you scarcely knew Catelyn. I'd taken her to wife. She was carrying my child. You are too hard on yourself, Ned. You always were. Damn it, no woman wants Baylor the Blessed in her bed. He slapped a hand on his knee. Well, I'll not press you if you feel so strong about it. Though I swear, at times you're as prickly you ought to take a hedgehog for your sigil.
Great line.
That is a good line.
So, brought that up because it did talk about Bastard's mom, right?
Yeah.
The only thing we heard so far about it was...
Ned didn't want to talk about it.
About, right? The other girl. Catelyn asked Ned about Ashara Dane, who was...
Okay.
Like, some lady. And
so
that's what Ned got mad. Then. That wasn't Wyla. So
okay.
Robert had says Wyla yes as if he's already heard it. So like the king knows, like this is who the king thinks I guess is John's father. Not that the king really gives a shit, but
John's mother.
Yeah, John's mother. And that's who Ned tells Robert when like asked directly about it. So that's who Ned tells people is John's
Why
mother.
do you think Ned he answers Robert with a name, but not, obviously he just shot Catelyn down. Like,
yeah.
Why not give her Willa too?
Is it just for an honor because he's the king? He feels like he has to tell him.
I mean, he's also his old friend too, right? Like, I mean, he probably already had told him at some
yeah,
point.
and it seems like Robert
Catelyn brings up the name Ashara too, and he just says, "Never speak that name again. Don't bring it up."
Yeah, and here, you're kind of like what Kyle said. Like Robert's talking like he remembers people. Like he's throwing names out there as if like names from their past where they were probably both hanging out together with like different girls and stuff. Right.
I feel like this is probably not the first time they've had this discussion, and he has given him this truth before. So
and like maybe even Robert like knows Wyla, like was there and like was there when he was
no,
because
didn't it sound like he didn't?
Yeah, he said, "What?"
Never told me what she looked like.
Oh yeah, she never told me what she looked like. Oh yeah, right.
Maybe like that was like a name, like Wyla was the fucking, what is it called? Like,
yeah,
or I was gonna say like the fucking horse person.
Yeah, and then Ned says that when he has John, like he like says that he's definitely already married to Catelyn. Like it wasn't like he had a kid before he was married. It was like
So
it was
with
during
with
the
that,
marriage.
is Rob older
And
than
she-
John then?
Yeah,
And-
just a little bit.
and Rob was probably Rob's more older than John.
Because he said I had taken her to wife and she was carrying my child.
Yeah, and I think we know that, right? Because are they both 15? Are they both 14, or is Rob 15 and John's 14?
I thought they were both 14.
Okay, I mean you're probably right. Then they say the guard catch up, and this is when they start to talk about
Daenerys Targaryen.
that Lord Varys has a letter about Dany. From Varys about Dany. And they say that basically they know what we know, that she's married some Dothraki horse lord.
And he's got an army.
A big army. Ned says that we also find out that we know this from Jorah Mormont. Yeah. And Ned says that Mormont is actually a northern house, and they're like on an island, and it's.
Is this the first we've heard of Jorah?
No,
No.
Other than
Jorah's
Joffrey- or
hanging
not
with
Joffrey,
hanging out Daenerys.
Yeah.
Other
Yeah,
than
who's the other
Danny.
guy?
Other than Danny's
Viserys.
chapters.
Viserys, that's his name, yeah.
We didn't hear, like, in a Catelyn chapter, they never brought up Jorah or anything
I don't
like
Not
think
that
so,
I
no.
think.
Yeah. So this is where we find out about their house. It's an old house, proud and honorable, Bear Island, but it's like cold and distant, and they don't have any fucking money. And we learn that Jorah tried to. Well, I think we already knew this, right? Jorah was exiled for selling slaves.
Yeah, I think he told Danny that
Yeah.
then.
And so Ned went to execute him, and it wasn't that he was exiled; he literally just fled execution.
He pieced, yeah. He's done
Robert
with that.
says that Varys says that spies are worth more than corpses, or something like that, right?
Yeah, so they explain that Jorah is trying to get back in the good favor. Like this
Yeah.
is kind of his method of trying to be able to come back.
Yeah, and Ned's like, I wish he was a corpse.
yeah,
not
he's
an
like
informer.
he deserves to die for what he did
Yeah.
because that's the rule.
Yeah, and that's when it says the corpses thing. Then we find out that what the letter's about. Dany and Drogo. I have another quote. Kyle, why don't you read it? Ned did not feign surprise.
Ned did not feign surprise. Robert's hatred of the Targaryens was a madness in him. He remembered the angry words they had exchanged when Tywin Lannister had presented Robert with the corpses of Rhaegar's wife and children as a token of fealty. Ned had named that murder. Robert called it war. When he had protested that the young prince and princess were no more than babes, his new-made king had replied, I see no babes, only dragon spawn. Not even Jon Arryn had been able to calm that storm. Eddard Stark had ridden out that very day in a cold rage, to fight the last battles of the war alone in the south. It had taken another death to reconcile them, Lyanna's death, and the grief they had shared over her passing.
When they take the sit, so we're finding more about like how Robert became king here.
Yeah.
When they take over the city, the Lannisters, Tywin presents Rhaegar's wife and dead children as like fealty. And Ned says that they were babes. So like they killed babies and presented it to Robert, and this just like infuriated Ned that like Robert was okay with just killing little babies because they were of the family that you're overthrowing.
Yeah, it was just war to him, but it shouldn't have been.
Yeah. So it pissed him off so much that like Ned's got like, peace out, I'm done with you. And not until like Lyanna, because Ned and Robert both love Lyanna, they become friends again. So that's like, you have to think like after Lyanna dies, like do they hang out that much, or does Ned just have to like? I assume he comes back to Winterfell pretty quickly. So it's not like it was like this. I'm thinking this war happened. They became like pissed off at each other, went separate ways. Lyanna dies, they come back together, and they like are there for her funeral for like a day or two, right?
Out for about I'm thinking like 6 months ish. You know,
I'm just saying like
Ned's got to help out around. You know, with the whole realm
really
and
that
shit.
long? Okay, I was thinking that more like
Ned won. We all know Ned won the fucking war and went back to the north as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think like if they haven't spent that much time together after Lyanna's passing, this like big argument they had is like still in pretty
Fresh.
recent, fresh, like pretty fresh, and they're like,
Man, it's
history or
been
whatever.
19 years.
Yeah, but if they haven't seen each other, and the last time they did was at a funeral, and the time before that was them getting into a huge fight. That's all I'm saying. So Ned's bringing this up again because now Robert is suggesting that they send somebody to kill these 2 Targaryen kids, Viserys, who I guess isn't really a kid, he's like 20 something, and Dany, who's 13 now. And Ned thinks
And a smoke show 13-year-old.
And Ned thinks that even though she now just married the leader of a huge army, she's still too young to kill.
Yeah, she didn't do anything
Not too
wrong
young to have
herself
sex.
yet. No, she is. That's still what he said, actually.
Old
What?
enough to pee. Old
He
enough
said
for
he
Khal
said
Drogo.
soon
she'll
she's
stretch
gonna
her
spread her
legs.
legs.
Yeah. I mean, she already did, buddy. If they're married, then she's already spread her legs. We know
I
that.
guess you're right. Yeah.
Is this a stupid question? How young can women start having children? Did you know that was
Whenever
coming?
they have their period.
So I don't know when that is.
It's usually around like 7th grade, so like 12 years old.
Somewhere around there.
Okay.
It's like 12 to 14, I think.
So Dany,
Yeah.
do we know?
Yeah,
if
it's a
Depends
Dany,
on the
range.
girl. It varies on the girl.
Yeah.
Do we know if Dany? She's 13, right?
Oh, she's bled.
She's bled.
She's blood.
That's what they say in the show.
I know. I just love that you're like very
still-
selective on which medieval words you use. Fortnite and bled, you're big on.
Well, he's still trying to justify this crush he has on a 13-year-old. I think is what's happening here.
Again, as long as you look at her as Amelia Clark, it's fine.
13-year-old Amelia Clark.
And that's she probably looked like a smoke show too.
All right, so I'm gonna read the next part of the quote where after Kyle stopped, where they talk about that not only were these babes, and the reason I bring this up is because they get into this argument. They're getting into the same argument they got into before about killing kids again. So they talk about like how the kids were presented the first time. He says Ned resolved to keep his temper. Your Grace, the girl is scarcely more than a child. You are no Tywin Lannister to slaughter innocents. It was said that Rhaegar's little girl had cried as they dragged her from beneath the bed to face the swords. The boy had been no more than a babe in arms, yet Lord Tywin's soldiers had torn him from his mother's breast and dashed his head against a wall. So it's not like they're like slitting the baby's throats or like
Yeah, he smashed him off the wall.
Drowning
yeah, I thought
them.
that was pretty gross. Pretty egregious. How's that?
Egregious. Great vocabulary word
A
there.
little over the top. A little bit.
I like it though. It's perfect.
No, I meant bouncing
Oh,
the baby's
that-
head
yeah,
off the wall.
yeah,
Is a
yeah.
little.
Yeah. So then they do the dragon spawn thing a little more and says it's only dragon spawn. And then Robert says that what Aerys did to Ned says it's unspeakable, and then Robert says what Aerys, the Mad King, had done to his
Your brother and father is unspeakable.
was unspeakable. Yeah. And then he says Rhaegar raped your sister how many times? 100 times.
We don't know.
And he
that.
says, I will kill every Targaryen I can get my hands on until they're as dead as the dragons. And then I will piss on their graves.
Robert's so mad about his old girl.
Yeah,
Have
he's
they-
a little upset.
It's been a little bit since we read those chapters now. Had they said how she died? Like I don't remember the full story of that.
They said she had
I don't-
died in like a cold fever or something.
Yeah.
A bed of blood. Something
Yeah.
like that.
Okay. That's what I thought. I didn't think it had anything to. Well, it didn't directly have anything to do with these people. The way
But-
it was described.
Yeah, and here we see that
Yeah, there's
he raped her.
some more involved.
Rhaegar
yeah.
raped her hundreds of times. And then there's another mention of it later on that I have written down. We'll see when we get there. Okay, yeah. So Ned doesn't want to make him any more angry. And Robert admits that like he had wanted to kill Dany previously, but Jon Arryn, the previous hand, had prevented it. Jon Arryn, as Kyle says.
Ew.
And that it doesn't matter if the Kyle has a huge army or not, because the Dothraki have no ships and are afraid of open water.
They're scared of the sea.
Ned thinks it's not a problem.
Why are they scared of the sea?
Or at least not a big enough problem to kill a child over.
They think it's cursed water.
I
It's just
know.
something they haven't
I
done,
know.
probably.
I know the answer to it.
They,
Oh,
they haven't
sorry.
said it yet. It's not,
Oh, my bad. Spoiler
I don't think
alert.
it's. Well, it's not. that's not even it. They don't like
It's not a
water that their
spoiler.
horses can't drink. So you were
Yeah.
wrong. It's just
They think
salt
it's
water.
cursed because the horses don't drink it. basically.
Salt water. Yeah, just with salt water.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
like salt water.
This
But
is
in-
no longer the spoiler-free section. It's
is that a
all
huge
the
spoiler?
section.
The
Yeah,
Dothraki
you-
don't like salt water.
Yes,
um,
you've ruined this.
So Robert fears that if they did cross, that it wouldn't just be the Dothraki, that there's some houses around that like still don't like him. Like some people
Some people still call me usurper.
And Ned, this is when Ned comes in and starts talking about the Warden of the East, right? And he says if you should say he should give it to John Aaron's kid, the little Robert who's sickly, give it to him. And Robert says, not a chance, not going to happen. And Ned picks up and says, like, it seems like Ned knows that Robert isn't going to give it to Robert because he's already picked somebody else. Ned suggests one more person. He says, do your brother Stannis. And he says by his reaction, he knew he had already chosen, and he asked about Jaime Lannister.
All right, and then they start talking about, Ned starts bringing up how giving it to Jaime is such a bad idea, and he basically covers his own ass saying that Jaime would be East and West Warden, or Warden of the East and West, which is giving someone 50% of the armies of the whole Seven Kingdoms.
Yeah.
And he's trying to, like, convince Robert not to give it to Jaime because he also doesn't like the Lannisters right now because he thinks they killed Jon Arryn.
Yeah, so right now, that's immediate concern
they've done a bunch of dumb shit, it sounds like, here.
Yeah.
The Lannisters.
Yeah, we find out more about them.
We find out that they're just big old pussies, is what we find out.
You're talking about the war now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, go ahead and get into that. What we find out about the Lannisters?
So we find out that during Robert's Rebellion, a lot of houses chose sides, and they're either fighting for Robert or fighting for the Targaryens. The Lannisters pussy asses stayed out west and didn't choose a side, and they didn't show up until the end of the war. And do we want to keep going into like the major part of that, or
it was after the Battle of the Trident, right?
Right after the battle.
So after the battle, yeah. So it's weird. Like Ned's like, I finally have to tell Robert the truth, but it seems like nothing that Ned tells him after that point is new news to Robert.
Yeah,
like he just keeps saying like, I know. But yeah, it's what you said. It's what you both said. They're at the Trident. Robert gets injured and commands Ned to lead the forces to take the capital. But when they get there, the Lannisters...
Which is weird. We never really find out that Robert, how he gets injured, because he defeats Rhaegar.
So you assume the battle like pretty much immediately ends after that, as soon as everybody
maybe it was
figures out
defeating Rhaegar.
Yeah, I mean, they think there's a picture in one of the books I have of them like on horses in a stream, but I don't know.
Yeah, they're battling in the Trident.
Yeah, like in the actual water.
I mean, he probably got hurt, right? Rhaegar wasn't a bad swordsman.
That's what I'm saying.
Rhaegar was
it's probably during that.
So what happened? What's Ned see when he gets to the city?
So he comes in and he sees the Lannister flags flying in King's Landing.
Well, the gates are open. He doesn't even expect that. He expects they're about to have to do a siege.
Right.
Because the Lannisters have been, like, they've been getting letters from both sides and just not answering either side. And they say it's like not just the Lannister army, but because he's the Warden of the West, it's literally the entire Western army. A quarter of the armies from Seven Kingdoms, if you assume they're all equal size.
So does that mean like a family in the West like couldn't have said like, oh no, I'm going to fight for the Targaryens, fuck you?
I think they could have, but I think it probably would have been real bad real quick. Like, I don't know.
Probably. They would have probably been exiled eventually.
Yeah, that's just what it seems like.
Just so you know, I found out here, it says, you took a wound from Rhaegar.
Okay, so he did take it from Rhaegar.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he gets the city. Targaryens have let in the Lannisters thinking it was them. Like, they just showed up and they're like, hey, we're here to be on your side, let us in. And as soon as they got in, they just sacked the entire city. And their banners are flying above the walls when Ned gets there. The Lannister banners, not Robert's banners. So, like, you gotta think of this from Ned's point of view. When he's going in here, he has no idea what he's walking into. Right? He doesn't know whose side these guys are on.
Ned's going in there ready to shoot from the hip.
Pew, 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 pew.
Han shot first.
Han shot first. He did shoot first.
All right, so what's Ned find, Kyle?
He comes across Tywin or is it Tywin or Jaime? Jaime on the throne, just hanging out on the throne with all his gear on,
with the king in his own pool of blood on the ground.
Dead-ass king, and a bloody sword.
And I know
he's supposed to be a Kingsguard.
I know Jeff has heard it from me a few times, and he gets sick of hearing it. But I don't know if I've told Kyle the throne. If you're thinking of the throne from the game, like the TV show, it's not that. This it's literally made of like 1,000.
Show him the picture.
Have I showed you this
I mean,
picture?
I know the one from the show I've seen.
It's no, not that.
I
That's the
understand.
thing. This one is huge. Like you have to climb. Like there's 20 steps built into it. Like you have to climb. So, like later at the end of this chapter, Robert jokes and said, "Oh, maybe he was just taking a rest. There's nowhere else
Yeah.
to sit." And that's a joke because it's not like you would rest on this throne. It's
Okay.
It's like you have to climb up these stairs.
And it's meant to be uncomfortable.
It's meant to be uncomfortable, so like you can't sit, like lean back, not listening to people. You're basically like upright, making sure you're not getting cut.
Yeah, so basic, and then Robert's like, "Oh yeah, I already knew that. Who the fuck cares, dude? Why are you even bringing this up to me?"
But it's just stupid that Ned fucking was like, "Oh, I got this big secret to tell. Oh, it's finally the truth comes out," and then it's, "Oh, I know
Robert's
that.
like,
I know that happened."
Guffaw.
And so then like it just and like Jamie just or Ned's telling the story and Robert's like not impressed by any of it, like he knows it all. And Ned just like, "Oh, but wait until you hear the end." And like the last part is that he says like, "I was just keeping it warm for you for our dear friend Robert. It's not a very comfortable seat, I'm afraid." And then Robert just like cracks up laughing. And he's like, "Oh, you think that's why I should mistrust Jamie? Just because he sat on my seat for a little bit?" Kyle, thoughts on this newfound first off take on Jamie Lannister, who we already know something about.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's obviously not afraid to push some little kids out the window
Exactly.
He's a total
Exactly.
jitbag.
and bang his sister, his
Yeah.
twin sister.
She's a smoke
But-
too, if you listen to her description.
It's still his sister.
We gotta use for every girl. I'm gonna have to record it in my notes, and we're just gonna have to go through all of them. And I'm just gonna have to ask Jeff for a 1 out of 10 rating scale.
Well, it's just gonna be all tens. It sounds like,
Leon is definitely a 10.
unless they're over 13.
Cersei,
And,
Cersei is said to be the most beautiful girl in the
She is.
Seven
Yeah.
Kingdoms.
You're right. You're right.
So
Cersei's a smoke. You're right.
But where were we at? What were we talking about? Oh, Jamie. Yeah, I mean, so he's obviously showing some aspiration to be the king. It seems here. It seems like he's kind of setting himself up to like, I'm gonna be here eventually. This
Yeah,
is gonna
and-
be my town.
Robert kind of forgives him because he says like, "Oh, he was just like a 17-year-old, or
Yeah.
a 16-year-old, or something like that, right?"
Yeah.
Like that makes an excuse. Like that's the same age they were, wasn't it? Isn't that the same age? Because like they're like, this
nah,
is
they're
14
like
years.
they're
This is
definitely
14
older.
years later, and they're like young 30s. So
Nah,
they were, like,
maybe a
20
couple
they're,
years
like,
older.
around
I'm gonna say they were like
20.
22.
We've definitely talked about this. Probably.
Yeah,
2 times.
we fell around like 30, 36.
Yeah. So I'm just saying they're like close in age. It's not like Jamie's that much younger than them.
Jamie's a little bitch though.
Jamie's a little bitch.
Well, so then basically the end of the chapter is Robert just like dismisses it and rides away. He's like, "Well, now I know Jamie Lannister's dirty secret," and he like rides off. And Ned just basically thinks to himself, he's like, "I shouldn't have come. I should have stayed in Winterfell."
Yeah, he belonged back home. Essentially, to be saying.
I wanna go home.
Ned just doesn't know anything but the North.
Honor.
No, he
So-
doesn't know how to talk to
That's
people.
how I see it too.
Ned,
No,
Ned might be
I
the
mean, he's
worst
like-
person to have a conversation with.
So, question for Kyle: Ned
It's
doesn't
too bad
trust
he
the
lives forever.
Lannisters. Ned doesn't
Yeah.
trust the Lannisters. But if the Lannisters were untrustworthy, why do they give the throne to Robert? They basically won the throne for Robert and gave it to him.
Because they didn't want to have another.
What are they gonna do?
Yeah, I
Fight
think they-
everybody
I think
else?
Yeah, exactly. I think that was already in motion, and there was no way to stop that.
Well, you have
Um,
like two basically defeated armies that are on like their last legs. Like they literally wipe out the end of the Targaryen army right there all at once because they're only at the capital. Because the war's almost over. The last fight's at the capital. We don't know how many forces Robert has, but it seems like the Targaryens basically ran out of everybody, or at least everybody who was supporting them dipped once they died.
I don't know. I don't think
This war's
that's a
been going
battle.
on for like 13 months.
You've
and
got to also think like, all right, if
their
the,
army is fresh.
listen though, if the Lannisters actually, we don't know if they actually brought the West with them. They probably
Yeah,
brought
I
the
don't know.
It
Lannister.
says 12,000 men.
That could be the Lannister army. 12,000 men
Still,
is not the
12,000 men's a
fucking
big
West.
army. 12,000 men's a big army.
I just think it was a timing.
I don't
thing,
think so.
Is what I would say. It didn't seem probably.
They probably
beneficial
won't get
to
support
them.
from the rest of the
Yeah.
the kingdoms on the
You can't
north,
just,
west,
You can't
and
just
south.
usurp the usurper.
I get you.
and
I
expect
guess,
people to be cool
I guess
with
I'm
it.
just pointing out, like, if the Lannisters wanted to rule, they had probably a better shot then than
No.
now.
No, they are. The one of them's queen.
Yeah, I guess.
I guess that's what Tywin was playing the long game, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They
I
had
just thought it was
stuff in
weird.
place that was gonna work out for him, so they didn't need to push it. Is I guess what I'm saying.
It's like while this story does paint Jaime in a bad light, at the end of the day, they did give it up to Robert and join his side, which is, I guess, kind of Robert's point of view.
I think that's like completely misguided though,
Why?
I agree.
because I think everything was pointing to them being like this was all part of a scheme, kind of. I mean, we obviously
Yeah,
have the
but
outside
Robert's
look
kind
at
of a
it, but,
dumbass.
I don't
Yeah,
know,
I think
just
he was
seems weird.
just too trusting.
Okay, that's all I got. Unless you guys have something else you wanted to talk about. All right, so we're gonna call it there. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you. In
We're
the
not
spoiler
calling
section.
it there. We got spoilers to talk about.
We see y'all in the spoiler section, Kyle. Get the
night, guys.
See ya, Kyle.
And in the section after the spoiler section, where we talk about
Summer
fan-written
Hall.
question.
Thanks,
Summer.
terrible existence. Keep writing in.
All right, bye, Kyle.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
All right, see you later, Kyle. We'll see you on
Kyle.
next episode on Tyrion 2. Have a lovely evening.
All right, so full disclosure on this episode, guys, we are actually recording the spoiler section of this a day earlier than the other section, so
That's not
hopefully
true.
hopefully we don't repeat ourselves.
I just
but
said
we're
goodbye
gonna-
to Kyle. What do you mean?
I'm just saying, normally it's easy for us to know what we already talked about so we don't repeat ourselves, but that's not going to happen here. Do you guys have any notes for stuff to talk
Come
about? in the
on, you
spoiler
know I don't
section?
take notes. Everything that I say is, shooting right from the hip. I shoot from the hip in this podcast.
All right, so first thing I'm going to touch on before we get into the Ned spoilers, something that I thought about and wanted to touch upon from the last one, and I just told these two, Jeff and Glow, this before we started recording. There's a part when Dany, in the last chapter, the Dany chapter, when she rides on her silver and she talks about how much she loves horseback riding. And I, as a believer that Dany is the child of Rhaegar and Lyanna, think that might be a small hint to Lyanna-Dany similarity.
But you're saying she didn't love horse riding the one we just read. She didn't love it. I mean,
Number two?
she
She just loved
enjoyed
riding that
once she
horse.
got on the silver, but up until she got silver, she was like an average rider. She said, and
Yeah,
she
exactly.
just kind of halfly enjoyed it.
But
so.
she said it's because she spent most of her life not on horseback in palanquins and shit. She says she
Alright.
had ridden before, but she spent most of her life in palanquins. This was one of the first times she ever got to really ride.
I think it could be more of the connection between her silver and her.
I think that's definitely a big part of it. I just think, and again, when you're looking for theories about whose people's real parents are, you kind of grab at anything you can.
You grab and I shoot it all down.
Yeah,
But
I agree with
also-
Jeff on this one. I think it's the connection. I was saying this before the show, same thing as Jeff said earlier.
I'm just saying, if you're an author and you're writing something like this, and you do want Dany's parents to be Rhaegar and Lyanna, these are the kinds of very subtle hints that you'll drop. So that when you do the reveal, you can go back and be like, well, if you look at it and read through between the lines and think of her as Lyanna's son, it makes sense why she likes horse riding. It makes sense. This makes sense. So I'm not saying it's 100% evidence. Oh no, Dany likes horses for sure. She's Lyanna's kid. I'm just saying, it's interesting.
All right, Arya likes horses too. Maybe she's Lyanna's kid.
Yeah, maybe she's related to Lyanna, like aunt and niece.
No, maybe
It's pretty-
maybe mother,
Aunt,
maybe
niece,
mother,
whoa.
daughter. Maybe mother daughter.
She's too young.
And Lyanna's other kid.
Yeah.
Oh god!
Alright.
Stop
You
that.
You know who else likes horses is Benjen. He rides them all the time when he ranges. Maybe he's the dad to.
Who? I missed that. Celia?
Shut up,
I said
Jeff.
I
He
said
Benjen.
Benjen. I
He's
just wanted to
being a
get you on
dick.
a tangent.
I mean, I've told you that theory before. I'm not going to get into it now, but
You're the
That is
reason
a
he goes
theory.
on.
that is a theory that people think is a small possibility. Benjen Lyanna is Jon's dad.
No.
Parents, which is why Jon looks like a double Stark.
Double Stark,
All right,
bastard.
getting into this chapter. So you guys don't have anything in particular to talk about? There's no
Uh,
dire wolves, so
I
Glow probably
mean-
doesn't have any notes.
No dire wolves. Don't have any notes on that.
They don't
but,
bring up the Isle of Faces for Glow.
The one thing, I mean, I want to keep my eyes out for Willa. Any mentions of that name? Willa. That's how you say it.
Wyla. That's how I say it.
I say Willa. Fuck Willa. That doesn't sound right.
Wyla. Okay, yeah. So there is a part where
I
they
think
talk
it is
about.
Willa.
Let me see. I think I have this quote.
I'm
They
looking
talk
at it
about
right now.
John.
Well, so I mean, I looked some shit up on Willa after I saw that name, and I was just like, all right. And then it says Edric Dane brings it up in Storm Swords.
So I think they already mentioned Wyla, right? Like isn't she John's wet nurse? I'm pretty sure there's
they mentioned that in Storm Swords.
that she's John's wet nurse.
Yes, that's what
Yeah.
Edric Dane says.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, you're right.
Edric Dane, she was a wet nurse for Edric Dane, and that they were milk brothers because John was drinking milk from her tits. So.
Yeah, you're right. So what Glow's saying here is, Arya, when she joins the Brotherhood, she meets the Brotherhood without banners, she gets outed by. Do either of you guys remember who outs Arya?
Is the Hound? No.
The Hound in the show. It's
In
the
the
Hound.
show, yeah.
In the books, it's Harwin's. I think it's either Harwin or Harwin's son. Harwin was the master of horse at Winterfell. I think it's his son. But it's a point because like he knows Arya because he trained her how to ride horses, and also she tries to escape on horseback like 2 or 3 times, but she always gets caught by Harwin because
He was yeah.
yeah, I think so. I think the son's name is Harwin, and it's like Hullen. Hullen was the master of horse, and Harwin is his son, and that's who outs Arya. But when she gets outed, another member of the Brotherhood Without Banners is Edric Dane, who is actually the Lord of Starfall, right? Like he's the oldest living male. I think. Glow, do you know?
I don't think so. Or else I think he would be Lord still. Of fucking. Why wouldn't he go back to Starfall?
He was like I think it's because he was in the Brotherhood or something, and he just chose to stay. Anyway, he's like high up there. He's not like Lancel Lannister even that far removed. He's like the heir if he's not the Lord already. He's like up top. You know what I mean? And so he meets Arya. Weird thing about Edric Dane, what's he go by? He doesn't go by Edric.
Ned.
Wet nurse. They shared a wet nurse. He shared a wet nurse with John. So he was born like right around the time Ned killed Arthur Dane. Right? Ned killed Arthur Dane.
So
what the book tells us is true.
Ned Dane is Arthur Dane's son, or just like nephew?
He's Arthur Dane's nephew. I think he's the son of Lyanna and Arthur's other brother.
Now Lyanna's got another kid?
No, not Lyanna. Ashara.
Ashara, yeah, I know.
Ashara and Arthur Dane were brother and sister. They had another brother. Edric is that person's.
I had one little. Are we done talking about the Danes?
No.
Okay.
No.
Hold on. I gotta look up the parentage. Yeah, so we actually don't know. Yeah, we don't know. So there was 5 Dane children: Arthur Dane, Ashara Dane, Alaria Dane, and then 4 Danes, and then another unknown Dane. That one was married to somebody who we also don't know who had Edric. But the point I was trying to make was it's interesting that Edric, named Ned, imagine somebody kills your dad or your uncle, and then your dad has a son. You know what I mean? Like you were born right after your uncle's death, and you're named after his murderer, or you take the nickname of his murderer.
I mean, there's how many people in the Southern Realms are named Ned or nicknamed Ned?
Okay, so just
I kind of agree with Nelson on this point here. That is
like you would think to avoid it's not like maybe he not was named after. If Ned actually had a hand in killing Arthur, you would think you would avoid that name like the plague. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Sure.
like Peter killed my uncle. I'm not going to name my son Peter.
Okay, so back to how
Name
this
him
relates
Paul.
to John, which is what they were talking about in this chapter.
Maybe.
Glow? You looked it up. What does he tell Arya?
Edric tells her that he was a milk brothers with John. That Willa was John's mom, and that Edric's mom couldn't produce enough milk, so that's why he had to go to Willa to suck on some titties.
Yeah, so what it says on the Wiki of Ice and Fire is that Ned tells Arya that he and her half-brother, Jon Snow, are milk brothers, like Glow said, and that his wet nurse, Wyla, was actually Jon's mother, and that's why she had milk to give him. And Wyla had been a servant of House Dane for years, and he swears that this is true on the honor of his house.
How
So
about that?
that is what... Again, it's weird because you got to think he was a baby when this happened, so he doesn't remember any of it. This is what he's been told, right?
I
This is
mean,
what,
Willa's
his
probably
father-
still living in
No, because
Wherever.
Catelyn says that she was pissed because when she moved into Winterfell, Jon and his wet nurse were already there. So Wyla moved to Winterfell.
I mean, maybe she moved back when she was done.
Yeah, for sure. But
I don't think Ned's banging Willa at
yeah,
Winterfell.
and if he think about
Willa
it, if
sounds
he
like
was,
a dog.
If you're banging Wyla, do you bring her back to Winterfell?
No.
No fucking way you bring her to where your wife's about to be.
Yeah, but I mean, does it really matter if he brings her back or another girl?
So my point on this one is, obviously Ned wasn't banging Wyla because he wouldn't have brought her back if it was her.
And she
Which
must.
means-
I don't
But
think
it
that's
says
an obvious
John's
thing.
wet nurse. It
Why-
doesn't
why
mean
does
it's Willa. Maybe
Why does
she
it? Why
ran
would
out
it
of milk.
matter? Why would
Maybe
he
there's another-
definitely not bring the girl back? Like if he's
Because his wife's about to be there.
he doesn't give. I mean,
It's Ned. He does give a
Ned
fuck.
is
This like
way
the most
too
dishonorable
honorable,
thing
dude.
he does
maybe
ever.
Ned is like riddle wrapped inside of a fucking mystery, and we don't really
We
know.
get 13 Ned chapters this book, and we know he's not a riddle. He's even Littlefinger says he's like literally the easiest person to read ever.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I don't think Wyla's John's parents, and I think what this not this chapter part, but the part that Glow brought up about Ned Dane. What that proves is the Danes maybe they don't know the truth about Ned, but they're willing to cover it up on purpose. They're purposely telling their own children the wrong story about John's brother or about John's parentage. And the Danes are like in on it basically. If there's anything to be in on, the Danes are in on it.
And Ned
The
does
quote
get
from-
pissed when Ashara got brought up by Catelyn.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I guess
And-
that's like a subtle name drop that probably has more meaning behind it in the end.
So the reason we're talking about this is because in this chapter there's a quote that says so they write out Robert says like let's just take off to the field and like never come back, be like swords at our hips. And Robert says Ned says we're not the boys we were. Robert says you never were the boy you were. And then there's the quote that I'm sure I already read in the non-spoiler section. Her name was Wyla. Ned replied with cool courtesy. And I
Willa.
would sooner not speak of her. Wyla, yes, the king grinned.
She must have been a rare witch to make Lord Stark.
Forget his honor, even for an hour. You never told me what she looked like. And then it goes on. I already read it. But that is like... So on top of Ned Dane, Robert Baratheon thinks Wyla is his... Ned's mother. Which means like this is like... If there is a cover-up, this is like Ned purposely is using this woman as a scapegoat.
Do you think this is the only like Robert's the only person that Ned like? All right, he's my boy. Like I'll name drop I'll name drop Willa to Robert. See if he spreads it to anybody else as like a little trap, a little friend trap.
That's not a bad idea, right? Because Ned just has to pick a woman that Robert might believe he slept with,
Right.
and then from there, Robert does the rest of the work.
Tyrion did the same thing with fucking testing out the people in
That's true.
Yeah.
That's very
King's
true.
Landing.
That's not a bad thing. But regardless of how it happened, Wyla seems to be the person that Ned wants people to think it. If they think that it's somebody, he wants to think it's her
Her over Ashara for sure.
for sure. We'll leave it there. It just seems like because he thinks about like the promise so much. I mean, we don't even really know if the promise is related to Jon. We assume so because of the bed of blood thing, right? That's how you kind of tie those two things together.
Oh, and he also said he's been living with lies for 14 years too. So like that right there, it makes it seem like it's.
Yeah. So if we assume that Jon's a lie, and that he wants people to think Wyla and not Ashara, that points to it really being Ashara. Okay, so that was a good point for the spoiler section. What else we got?
All right, I just got a couple things. The first one being like I think it's kind of weird that Robert rides off so fast that he rides away from Ned.
You mean on the
And-
way there or on the way back?
On the way, well, I kind of assume they're racing on the way back, but there, like you're riding
Well,
with your boy.
on the way back, he rides off like pissed off because Ned was asking about
Oh,
the War
yeah,
of
yeah,
the
yeah.
East thing.
Yeah. All right.
And
So
Ned
more
chilled
like
for a
going
second.
off. Like I understand. Like this was my thought. Does he just want to get away from his guards, or are his guards just cool with him just going off on his own? Is Robert just trying to get away from his guards so he can talk? Like, is he embarrassed about like wanting to kill Daenerys? But it doesn't sound like it really. Like, is there a reason he wanted to get away from the guards? Does he just not like them?
No, they bring it up in the beginning. He said there's a lot of ears in camp, and like he doesn't know who he
Yeah.
can trust. He doesn't know if he
True.
can trust.
Well, that's
his
why
guards.
he wants to get away from camp.
Yeah, but you don't know if you can trust your guards either.
Yeah, but by the time he's done, like, it's weird because when they first get there, they just kind of like when they first get away from the guards, they kind of just like shoot the shit and like talk about like their friendship. But by the time they're talking about Danny, there's like the line because I was thinking about what Jeff's saying too, like were they trying to get away from the guards? Like by the time they're talking about the Danny shit, the guards are back. There's like a line that says that by then the guards had rejoined them.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more just like Robert being Robert, like because like
Just like
he rides
fucking,
out
I'm
fast.
riding out. Yeah.
Yeah,
You just wanted to enjoy riding.
kind of like exactly what he's saying. Like I've never
Like
skipped the ride
Daenerys.
again.
Oh my god, he likes to ride a horse like Daenerys. Is Daenerys Robert's kid?
That's why he's such great friend. That's why he loved Lyanna so much because he liked horses.
All right. Second thing I want to talk about: how can Jaime Lannister be named Warden of the East? It doesn't make sense. He's a member of the fucking Knights Guard, King's Guard. He can't
that doesn't make sense.
How can you give him a title?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
That's the stupidest fucking thing I've read to this point.
The thing is, I don't know. I probably should know the Kingsguard vows exactly. I know they can't have a wife.
He
and
can't
claim
take
no
on name
land.
and title.
I don't know if title's part of that.
Yeah, I don't know if
Title's
title
part
is,
of the
because
Night's
you can be
Watch for
part of
sure.
the council.
Title's part of the Night's Watch for sure. But you can be part of the council.
As we
Yeah,
all Google.
I'm going on Google right
I
now.
assume that holding titles is not part of it. Because technically a warden has no land, they just control all the armies.
I don't know. I think it's bullshit.
Ned doesn't seem to question that part of it at all. Right? And Ned's trying to find any reason that this wouldn't be allowed.
All right, and then again, why would Robert? He doesn't like the Lannisters. He doesn't trust them. You can't think
makes no sense.
bullshit. Like, let me just go with one of the fucking
brother.
members of the Vale. Yeah, or I don't know. I think he trusts his brother too much. Like, he had to have another friend.
I think he trusts Stannis. I don't know if he trusts Renly, but he probably.
And Robert's
trusts...
excuse is Jaime won't do anything to hurt me because everything Jaime is, he owes to me. Right? Like, without me, Jaime is nothing, basically. Is what Robert's thinking here, which makes
that's
no sense.
Flawed
He's
thinking.
already a
It makes
fucking
no sense.
Kingsguard.
Yeah, he was a Kingsguard before Robert came.
Yeah.
He gained nothing from Robert except for maybe more power because Robert married his sister.
And then the other thing is, all right, you name him Warden of the East. He's never there in the East. He's in King's
He's gotta
Landing.
be in King's. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
So, okay, so the reason I can see like part of what you guys are saying not being picked up is because Ned makes a point. He says that in his head, the big problem with Jaime being Warden of the East is that immediately Lannisters now own 50% of the armies.
East and West, yep.
But he can't say that to Robert because he doesn't want Robert to know that he's like
plotting,
kind of
thinking that the
anti-Lannister.
Lannisters are plotting against
So
him.
his excuse is eventually Jaime himself, one person, will own, like once Tywin dies and he becomes Warden of the West as well as East, then Jaime himself will have 50%, which Robert admits is a problem, but he's like, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Like, Tywin's not going to die anytime soon.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't seem that maybe Robert's not as suspicious of the Lannisters as he thought. Like, he says that Cersei's a pain in the ass.
He's a
In
drunk
the first
fool.
in the first Ned chapter, he says like Cersei's a pain in the ass and like you don't sleep with a Lannister, you got to keep him happy
I
sometimes.
think he says that again in this one.
He just it doesn't seem like he's pro Lannister, but it doesn't seem like he's nearly as anti Lannister
I don't think
as Ned.
he honestly gives a fuck in the world, except for the Targaryens.
Yeah.
And then there's
seriously.
one other thing that I think is just really stupid. Ned thinks he's holding in this big ass secret about Jaime being on the throne, and Robert literally says like, "Oh yeah, what of it? I know he was on. I know he was on the throne."
story
like,
at the end.
Yeah, like Ned's like, "Oh, I'm holding back this big secret about," and Robert's like, "Okay, who gives a fuck?"
Yeah.
It's just like the least suspenseful fucking story from Ned.
One
ever.
thing about that story, and I probably said it in the non-spoiler section, but just so you guys get this picture now, when you guys cannot think of the Iron Throne.
I've seen the picture in your book. You don't need to show me again.
Okay, but just think about that. It's literally like 25 feet high.
I understand that.
Like George R. R. Martin has said that. Like when you're sitting on the Iron Throne, it's not like you were tired and you sat down on a chair.
You
And
climbed.
He has literally brought this part up before. Like people ask him about this passage, the part that you're talking about, where Ned tells him the story, and he says he says the biggest reason he doesn't like the throne in the show is because of this one scene. It makes this scene way less offensive, where Jamie literally just sits down on a chair, potentially because he is tired, right? In the show, you have to climb like 15, 20 stairs to sit down on this throne. So Jamie like did that on purpose and is up there with all the knights around him. Ned says he rides through an aisle of knights, right?
I'll read it. I think I can read it here. I cannot answer for the gods, your grace, only for what I found when I rode into the throne room that day. Eris was dead on the floor, drowned in his own blood. His dragon skull stared down from the walls. Lannister's men were everywhere. Jaime wore the white cloak of the Kingsguard over his gold armor. I can see him still. Even his sword was gilded. He was seated on the Iron Throne, high above his knights, wearing a helm fashioned in the shape of a lion's head. How he glittered. And then the king says, "This is well known."
Yeah, I know.
Like, he knew that. He knew it. So what's the fucking big deal?
I don't get why Ned. Yeah, I mean,
Ned's acting like he's bringing, like, oh, shit, like, I never told you, Jaime was on the throne when I walked in there. It's not like he was waiting for you. It was well known. That's the part. It was well known. It wasn't a secret. There was no secret to it.
But like, you also don't really think like they talk about more than just the end of this. They talk about like how Jaime got there. Like in the show, it doesn't seem like the Lannisters waited till the end. It seems like they were just on Ned and Robert's side the entire time. But what Ned says here is like they're doing like their thing. Ned and Robert are fighting. Robert gets hurt at the Trident. Ned goes to King's Landing. And when he gets there, the Lannisters are like, who nobody knew which side they were going to fight for. That's how they get let into the city. They show up and Rhaegar, like Aerys thinks they're on his side.
That's the whole point about it. Like, I mean, Jaime stabbed him right in the back, but doesn't he say burn them all, like kill them? He didn't Aerys, is it Aerys, right? Or is it Aegon?
Yeah, Aerys.
No, Aerys.
Aerys. He commands his pyromancer to burn the city, and Jaime stabs him in the back.
And,
I'm saying the weird thing is,
he told him to kill his dad, right?
Yeah, kill his dad. The thing that I'm trying to point out is I get what Robert's saying here. And if the Lannisters were just part of like Ned and Robert's army the entire time, you know what I mean? Like in all the battles with them, and then this happens, it's not like, who cares? Right? But it's completely different. Like the Lannisters could have been trying to take the throne for themselves. When Ned walked into that throne room, he didn't know. Because they had never talked to the Lannister army before. They literally showed up and got let into the city because Aerys thought they were on his side.
Right. The only
Nobody
thing,
knew whose side they were on.
like, I understand that it's a big deal. Like, at this point, we can't trust. You can never should have trusted the Lannisters, especially because they never fought in the beginning. But it wasn't a secret. I don't know why Ned was acting like he was telling a secret there. That didn't make any sense.
Yeah, that part doesn't make sense. How Robert seems to know about this, where
Does Robert know about it, or does
he
just
said
laugh
it-
about
it's
it's
well
well
known.
known.
He said it's like public knowledge that Jaime was sitting on the throne.
Oh.
It's well known. That's the quote. It doesn't make any sense.
and the part that when Ned keeps telling little parts, and Robert's like, yeah, I know that, and then it's like kind of like when you're telling somebody something that you think they're gonna be surprised by, and you tell them and they're not surprised, so then you like tell them like the next part of the story and they're still not surprised. Then the last like punch that Ned gives to try and like make Robert mad about Jaime is he says he took off his helm. He said to me, "Have no fear, Stark. I was only keeping it warm for our friend Robert. It's not a very comfortable seat, I'm afraid." The king threw back his head and roared. His laughter startled a flight of crows from a tall brown grass. Like, that's the thing that Ned thinks is gonna like piss him off, is the fact that he said he was keeping the seat warm. Like, Ned should be pointing out the fact, like, dude, they showed up literally last minute. We had never talked to them. We didn't know whose side they were on. They could have been trying to steal your throne.
Yeah, and here's the other quote that Ned made it seem like it's a big story. We were not sworn brothers of the Kingsguard, Ned said. The time had come for Robert to hear the whole truth. He decided then and there. Do you remember the Trident? You're great. Like, all right, the whole story. He knew the whole fucking story.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's just stupid fucking part of this chapter. That's all I had.
Okay. The only thing I had was really small. Do you remember when they first ride out, they're looking out across a big field
Yeah, with all the tombs and shit.
with the barrows? The barrows are basically just like, I picture them like 20 yards long and maybe like 10 yards wide. Just like mounds.
Yeah.
And they were burial mounds. That's what they were.
Right.
You're in the north. These are burial mounds from the first men.
The
okay?
the others come back and
Why do you bury your dead if you have others? This is from the first men. He says this is from the times of the first men, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe the first men didn't encounter them right away.
You mean okay? So if the first men did encounter them, like when the first men all died, which is what happened in the long night, if these barrels are from before then they're empty.
Yeah, you'd think. Or maybe the others were just like, fuck it, we don't need them yet. Let's save them. Like little.
You know what I mean?
Like little.
I mean, it's gotta
landmines.
be also kind of hard to dig your way out of the ground.
So like, yeah, that's true. But like, how we don't know how deep they're burying them. But like, think about it. Like, also the Starks have a fucking crypt.
Yeah,
Why the
that's
fuck
true.
are you burying people? And the Starks though have the sword, right? Maybe the Iron Sword is like to keep. They say it's to keep spirits like
locks
vengeful
it in.
spirits from coming back. Maybe it makes the others' power not work. Right?
And
Or
maybe
it's
that's
just
why
like-
they don't use weapons.
But do the other ones do that? Like, do like these other barrows have that? Is like
Probably not. I don't know.
it seems like these barrows, and they talk about it later. Lady Dustin, the person who Theon talks to in Dance with Dragons, she's the one who like wanted to marry Ned's brother. She's from Long Barrow. The Dustins are from Long Barrow, which is like the biggest of the burial mounds. It's like a castle on top of a burial mound. Like George R. R. Martin potentially is setting up like
The
huge
biggest
underground
Battle of
hidden,
Winterfell ever.
like surprise army that just comes out of nowhere. Like the others are almost defeated, and they walk forward, and then literally all the north is just like full of barrows. But it is interesting because you're right. Like either A, these were buried before the long night, and they for some reason weren't dug up, or you can't get out from a barrow because there's too much dirt or something. Or B, they were done after the long night, in which case it makes you think like if they remembered the long night and knew that there was others, why are they burying people and not burning them? I just thought the barrows
I
was,
agree
like,
with you there.
a really interesting choice for death thing in the north.
Yeah. No doubt.
That's all I got. Neither of you guys have anything else?
Nope.
No. No direwolves for Glow. No.
All right,
No weirwood trees and no dreams for you. Moving
So
on.
that is the end of our discussion on Ned 2. Hopefully when I edit this all together after having recorded the non-spoiler section after this, everything makes sense. We're not rereading the same passages too much, but
We'll just let Kyle, push the convo if we can.
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, Cal.
Yeah.
I think there's gonna be a lot of stuff to talk about in the non-spoiler section here for Kyle.
Yeah. All right. Moving on.
Moving on. So normally we would be done here.
Not today.
Not today. We had what would you call this? A question? A theory? Jeff?
A discussion.
A follower discussion topic. He is at. It came through Twitter at Terrible Existence.
At Terrible Existence. DM'd us on Twitter. He was listening to our. I'm pretty sure this is a
Had
question.
to be Duncan
The
Egg,
Hedge
right?
Night.
Yeah,
Hedge Night podcast. It's a question about Summerhall. He asks if Jeff knows a
Jeff
lot about
specifically because I'm the man and he wanted to
Just
talk
because
to
Jeff sounds kind of dumb when he talks, and he's like, "Hey, does Jeff know how to breathe?"
I don't breathe as well as another human being.
So yeah, I'll read his question, unless you have it up, Jeff.
I can have it up.
I have a question. Does Jeff know what happens with Duncan Egg at Summerhall? I feel like that's an interesting thing to have hanging over the story. So just before we get into this, I want to mention, if you haven't read Duncan Egg, might want to back out. We're probably going to touch on some stuff. We're definitely going to touch on some stuff. I really recommend reading Duncan Egg. If you haven't, don't listen to this. You want to experience all that.
Easy, quick read.
through. Great reads.
Great reads, quick and easy, and they're fun.
And then once you listen to them, you can check out our podcast on them. Some of the best content we've ever made.
Yeah.
Spark this fan question. So I talked to Terrible Existence over DM a little bit, and then he sent me some links for some stuff regarding Summerhall to talk about. So why don't you guys tell me right now what you know about Summerhall, so I know what I'm working with.
So, I mean, we learned in the Dunk and Egg stories that the one Targaryen son, that was like his castle, right? Egg's dad.
So yeah.
Egg's dad.
Yeah, Magar.
Magar. That was his castle. Egg was, 1 of 5, so wasn't likely that he was going to be the heir of Summerhall.
Which is why he's called Aegon the Unlikely when he does become.
And then he
king.
does become king, which I guess also makes him. Was he at one point heir of Summerhall before he was the king, or
Lord of Summerhall? He might have been Lord of Summerhall, probably.
So that's kind of all I really know. I don't know too much at all.
I forget the exact. So there's an event that happens at Summerhall.
Yeah, I mean, you've told me about this after we got the write-in.
Okay.
Glow, do you want to
Glow?
talk about it?
I know just about as Jeff does right now.
All right, so then I'll go into it. So the Summerhall doesn't get talked about, but it's talked that Aegon killed everybody there trying to rebirth dragons, and that he became crazy with dreams of dragons and started messing around with wildfire to try and get the stone eggs to give birth to the dragons, and ended up killing everybody except Egg saved a handful of people before.
Dunk saved a
Dunk,
handful of
I'm
people.
sorry. Dunk saved a handful of people. I forget who they were.
Wait, who went crazy and started doing that? I did not know
Egg.
about this.
Egg.
Really?
Aegon the Fifth.
I never heard about this. Holy shit.
So to put this in a timeline, one of the main reasons that Summerhall is such a huge event, Rhaegar was born either during the fire of Summerhall or immediately a day after.
Yeah. So Dunk saves Rhaegar's mom.
Dunk saves Rhaegar's mom.
So
with a pregnant Rhaegar's mom who might be in labor with Rhaegar when Dunk is saving her.
So then if you go back to the Hedge Knight.
So hold on before we get to that, which is what basically the Reddit link that Terrible Existence sent me.
Is this fact or is this a theory?
So this is the World of Ice and Fire. I'm gonna read you guys a really short passage. Again, George R. R. Martin intentionally obscures a lot of stuff about this passage, or about Summerhall. He purposely stops Fire and Blood, which is the most recently released Targaryen history book. He stops that before Summerhall because he said he can't release information about Summerhall before Winds of Winter. And in this book, there's a small excerpt about Summerhall, a few lines, but it says, "A tantalizing page of Gildane's history, surely one of the very last written before his own death, hints at much, but the ink was spilled over it in some mishap and blotted out too much." So he doesn't even give us an actual passage. He gives us segments of sentences that he says the rest was covered in ink. So I'm gonna read you guys a few short, 2 short paragraphs that is the end of Aegon's reign, leading into what happens at Summerhall. So, the last year of Aegon's reign, this is Egg. We're talking about from the Dunk and Egg stories. Were consumed by a search for ancient lore about dragon breedings of Valyria, and it was said that Aegon commissioned journeys to places as far away as Shy by the Shadow, with hopes of finding texts and knowledge that had not been preserved in Westeros. What became of a dream of dragons was grievous tragedy born in a moment of joy. In that fateful year, 259 AC, the king summoned many of the closest to him to Summerhall, his favorite castle, there to celebrate the impending birth of his first great-grandchild, a boy later named Rhaegar, and to his grandson Aerys and his granddaughter Rhaella, the children prince of Jaehaerys. It is unfortunate that the tragedy that transpired at Summerhall left very few witnesses alive, and those who survived would not speak of it. A tantalizing page of Gildane's history, surely one of the very last written before his own death, hints at much, but the ink was spilled over it in some mishap that blotted out too much. From the history of Archmaester Gildane. The blood of the dragon gathered in one, 7 eggs to honor the 7 gods, though the king's own septon had warned. Pyromancers. Wildfire. Flames grew out of control. Towering. Burned so hot that died, but for the valor of the Lord command. That's it. That's literally the only passage we have about Summerhall. So we got the blood of the dragon gathered in one. Probably all the blood of the dragon gathered in one place, meaning all the Targaryens were in the same place at the same time. 7 eggs to honor the 7 gods, though the kingdom's septon had warned. So Egg thinks that getting 7 eggs is going to honor the 7 gods and give them a better chance of birthing dragons, but the septons seem to not agree. Pyromancer's wildfire. These cats are involved. Flames grew out of control, towering, burned so hot that shit caught on fire. So it says died, comma, but for the valor of the Lord command. So somebody would have died except for the valor of the Lord Commander, who we know is Duncan the Tall, who's the Lord Commander for Egg.
Oh, fuck, man. Egg.
So how does this relate to the Hedge Knight?
Do you want me to go back over? And I don't know the quote exactly now, but
I got the page number if you have your book, Andy.
I'd probably do, but I'm not gonna go get it.
So it's at the very end of the first book.
Just read it. Everyone loves when you read.
I know they like you reading better, which is why I wanted you to have your book.
All right, I'll get my fucking. I'll
Flo,
get
do you
my
have your
book.
Duncan Egg book?
I do not. I
I'll get
load
it.
it
Oh,
to
yeah,
my
you might.
coworker. I need more wine.
I do anything for you fans. Just know that. What page am I on now?
115 on the right.
115.
115.
The Hedge Knight was that long? 115 pages?
Each one's about 120. Yeah.
Fuck. Oh, I remember we broke it up in half, right?
Yeah.
Fuck, I thought they were way shorter.
Who are you gonna be, Jeff?
You have to be Dunk.
What's my dunk voice? Let me get into it.
Just do it, or I'll give you a clout in the air.
All right. All right, go ahead. Glow and the fans. Jeff is Makar. I'm Dunk. This is from the Hedge Knight, the very end, 115. If you have the hardcover.
You'll hear them whisper as well. The king is old. When he dies, Valar will climb the Iron Throne in place of his father. Each time a battle is lost or a crop fails, the fools will say, Baelor would not have let it happen, but the Hedge Knight killed him.
Dunk could see the truth in that. If I had not fought, you'd have had my hand off, and my foot. Sometimes I sit under that tree there and look at my feet and ask if I could have spared one. How could my foot be worth a prince's life? And the other two as well. The Humphreys, they were good men too. Sir Humphrey Harding had succumbed to his wounds only last night.
And what answer does your tree give you?
None that I can hear. But the old man, Sir Arlen, every day at evenfall he'd say, Wonder what the morrow will bring. He never knew no more than we do. Well, mightn't it be that some morrow will come when I'll have need of that foot? When the realm will need that foot, even more than a prince's life. So people think this quote is in direct reference how one day Dunk is going to be the one who saves Rhaegar Targaryen from a burning fire. And that was the day that his foot was more important than a prince's life. I think this is 100% accurate. I mean, think about how little we know about Summerhall, but we know that Rhaegar's alive. His pregnant mother was there. He was born on this day. And Dunk saves somebody.
You know what I think would be even more so, Nels, is if Makar said that quote. Like, oh, well, or like if Dunk was like, why is my foot's not worth Baelor's life? And Makar was like, there will be a day when that foot is worth more than a prince's life.
Yeah.
And then you could say that he had a green dream or whatever.
Had
Yeah, that would be
Targaryen
sweet.
dream. So that was another thing I want to touch on. In two of these three stories, I think two, we meet Targaryens. One of them, Egg's brother, Daeron, in the tavern, and in the last one, it's John the Fiddler, Daemon Blackfire. Both tell Dunk about dreams they had of dragons hatching. Both times, or no, not one was just a dead dragon. One was a dragon hatching. The dragon hatching was Egg being found out as a Targaryen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the dragon dying was Baelor dying. Do you think that dreams in any way led to Summerhall? Like Egg, think about Egg. We know Egg. We read 3 stories about Egg. Egg's fucking the man. And he killed everybody. He killed his entire family except for Rhaegar and Aerys, basically.
He had the Targaryen madness in him. But yeah, I think it definitely has to do with dreams. It's probably the shy people fucking with him somehow.
Yeah, so also people think that there's a good chance Egg found something. It says that there was very few Targaryen kings who didn't have like priests and sorcerers and like historians come and examine at dragon eggs and try and find out how to hatch them. Like basically everybody did that. But they think maybe the reason Egg tried this like ritual was because he found something like that nobody else found.
Maybe he just needed to walk into a
Also, so
burning
people
pyre.
and Glow, I was 100% with you when I first read this that it's just the Targaryen madness. But
I mean, the Targaryen madness is brought on by dreams a lot of times.
Yeah.
And we know how important dreams can be.
And that's definitely a possibility, and I think this is definitely really ambiguous because George R. R. Martin wants us to think it's either that, but also if you read like it's not long, it's like 2 or 3 pages in this World of Ice and Fire book about Aegon the Fifth's reign, like once he actually becomes king. He married for love instead of like for a marriage pact because I think, again, I don't know the exact history, but because
Who's this? Aegon?
Aegon, Egg, because he was so low on like the list of succession, it didn't really matter who he married, so he was able to marry who he wanted. I think that's the reason why he was able to. But then he becomes king, right? So he felt that he wasn't able to tell his children that they had to force to marry somebody when he had married for love. So he kind of let his children choose who they married. Like I think he just like 100% said it was up to them. Problem was he pissed off a lot of other families by doing that. So there was like a lot of people who didn't like him, mainly because his kids were just like not marrying anybody. Like, you know how like marriages are like a big thing, right? So
Yeah,
not
I mean, it's all.
And also
strength
he was
of
like
power and whatnot.
Because of Dunk, because he spent so much time with Dunk, he learned like how the small folk live. Like think about like the Pates, right? And like melon pate and corn pate and barley pate or whatever.
Yeah.
He like, and he knows how they live, and like we've talked about it like so many times. Like even when we read him, Dunk is just teaching him about the small folk, and he's like, he says this is just a stupid fight, and he says so are any big war, just like people fight over the same thing, just on a bigger scale. So it made Egg like a really progressive king almost, right? Like he tried to avoid conflict at any cost. He was always trying to like put in reforms to help the small folk. The problem is in the Middle Ages, the small folk don't have power like they do, like the public does in a democracy now.
The rich people.
Yeah, they don't get a vote. It just pissed off all the rich people. So like everybody hated Aegon, and so people think that Aegon wanted to hatch the dragons. Like the reason he got obsessed with hatching the dragons, and it even kind of hints at it in that first passage I read, is he wanted to get dragons so he could have power. But is it power because he went mad like all the other Targaryens, or is it power because he thinks kind of in a Dany sense where with dragons I can stop slavery and I can do, you know what I mean? Like just because you want dragons doesn't make you mad, does it?
Maybe.
I mean,
it's a good thought.
He kind of put a lot of wildfire next to his whole family. That's kind of fucked up. He said he brought all the all the Targaryens in one spot, and a bunch of wildfire.
Let me give you one more paragraph from before the 4 that I read before the Summerhall thing. This is about why he brought everybody to Summerhall. Intent on one more thing: dragons. As he grew older, Aegon V had come to dream of dragons, flying once more of the 7 kingdoms of Westeros. In this, he was not unlike his predecessors, who brought septons to pray over the last egg, mages to work spells over them, and macers to pour over them. Though friends and counselors sought to dissuade him, King Aegon grew even more convinced that only with dragons would he ever wield sufficient power to make the changes he wished to make in the realm, and force the proud and stubborn lords of the 7 kingdoms to accept his decrees. So like his reforms for like the peasants and shit, the small folk. He thought that like dragons were the only way to make the rich listen to him. If that's true, then he didn't go crazy. He was just like, you know what I mean?
He's kind of power hungry, you know?
And if that's the case, is it all Dunk's fault that the Targaryens all died? Because Dunk's the one. If he didn't ever spend any time with Dunk, he wouldn't give a shit about the small folk. No king gives a shit about the small folk. Egg was like obsessed with reforms to a point that no other king has ever cared about, because he saw how people actually lived.
Yeah,
so is it Dunk's fault?
Yeah.
That's like kind of the question that if like that was what what's his name, Vile Existence and I. That's like what we started talking about. That was like the main reasoning behind his question. He's like, is all this like kind of because of Dunk?
Maybe. That's a tough question though. It's like
definitely,
you know.
We talked to all fucking Dunk and Egg series about how Egg was learning so much like lessons that none of his brothers learned, or nobody saw both sides of the coin like Egg did.
So George R.
Yeah.
R. Martin, and here's I like hope he's got some magic going in the background, because he says he wants to do the last 2 books, Winds and Dream, and then 9 Duncan Egg novels. I think he said he actually is going to put out Winds, a Duncan Egg novel, and then Blood and Fire, and then Dream is the order he wants to do. But think about it, 9 more Duncan Egg novels. That's going to take us
All the way up to Summerhall.
to Summerhall. The last one's going to be Summerhall. It's going to be fucking. Oh, we literally get to see all of Eggs and Dunk
I'll
life
cry.
together.
I'm gonna cry.
I cry at like every one of these books already, dude. It's so good.
So
Duncan Egg books are so good.
Dunk's gonna die saving Rhaegar.
Saving somebody. We don't know if it's Rhaegar or not, but we know that Rhaegar.
We don't know that he
lives.
dies either, though.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, we don't know. We technically don't know that any of them die. So there's only one person. So another super weird thing about Summerhall. Think about it. Think about if you are Rhaegar and your entire family like died in like 9/11, would be like the current day equivalent, right? Your entire family was at the World Trade Center.
Yeah. Oh, wait,
Twin
Rhaegar,
Towers.
Aerys is still alive, and the cousin too. She's still
but
alive.
like, so you and your close family, but the rest of them, 9/11. He would go there. Rhaegar. It said it was his favorite place. Summerhall was Rhaegar's favorite place. He would go there by himself. He wouldn't let anybody come, and he would write music there. How weird is that, dude?
Is that in Fire and Blood?
No, I think that's in the books. Like people say, like the thing is, people like Summerhall is mentioned so scarcely throughout the main series that there's not like really enough to piece anything together. Like I think we hear that it was a tragedy at the end of Aegon's reign, but I don't even know if we hear that there was fire except for the Fire and Blood. Like, but you hear that there was a tragedy at Summerhall that happened and it killed like all the Targaryens. You get that much from the books. But it's so fucking weird that why does Rhaegar return to that place? It's like his favorite place, not his favorite place to visit, his favorite place. It's where his entire family died. It's just super weird. And I
Uberly
think
weird.
Rhaegar was a weird guy.
I think Jenny of Oldstones, the song is about Summerhall. Jeff, give me a rendition of Jenny of Oldstones.
I don't know at all.
It's the one that
I didn't
they-
enjoy that scene at all when Pod sang it. So.
What?
Pod's a
Glow?
bitch.
Do you know any of it?
How many times are
I
we
don't
gonna
know
say
any of
Pod's
it.
the biggest bitch in the Seven Kingdoms?
High in the halls of the kings who are gone, Jenny would dance with her ghost. The ones she had lost and the ones she had found, and the ones who had loved her the most. The ones who had been gone for so very long, she couldn't remember their names. They spun her around on the damp old stones, spun away all her sorrow and pain. She never wanted to leave, she never wanted to leave. They danced through the day and into the night, though the snow that had swept through the hall, from winter to summer and winter to again, the walls did come and fall. I think that even less of like I think only the first verse is in the books, the one that I actually sang, but it's about Summerhall.
How do
The
you know?
high in the hall of the kings who were gone. Summerhall is where the Targaryens live, besides Dragonstone and King's Landing. So the halls of the kings who were gone, Jenny would dance with her ghosts. And the person who wants this song sang is, I think, the ghost of Highheart. When Arya meets the ghost of Highheart, do either of you remember who she is?
No.
No? When Arya's with her brother without banners, they would visit this like old lady who's probably a child of the forest.
That's what I thought.
remember
Isn't that the ghost of? Yeah, isn't that the ghost?
The ghost of Highheart. They call her the ghost of Highheart. She's not actually a ghost. She's like a person.
Yeah, but she's the child of the forest, which is weird. Why does she have
She's
any?
a super old child of the forest who I think used to love. I think Aegon's egg. I think his son. He has a son named Duncan the Small, or something like that. He names him Duncan the something. He names him Duncan, and they call him Duncan the something that rhymes with tall. But I think he falls in love with a girl named Jenny, and he was the Lord of Summerhall because Egg was somewhere else. So I think this song is about Jenny. I think Jenny is like one of the only known survivors. Fuck, this is definitely online somewhere. Of Summerhall, and she goes there and dances because she misses Duncan
The Small.
The Small or whatever his name.
Duncan the Fall.
Everybody, the only thing that you need to hear from that part is Nelson singing, because that's about the only thing that
Was it
make you-
amazing? I purposely
my
had to
God.
minimize you guys so I couldn't see if you were laughing at me or not. I assumed you were. 'cause
No,
it's pretty
no,
funny.
no, no.
What's
No,
that called? A
that's
falsetto?
That would be a falsetto if that's what you consider what you were in. I don't know if you were technically in that octave or not. Good attempt though.
You should have been a baritone.
Dude, my memory is so good. So I just Googled Jenny of Oldstones and got the Wiki of Fire and Ice. Jenny of Oldstones was the wife of Duncan Targaryen, the Prince of Dragonflies. How dope is that? They call him the Prince of Dragonflies? Yeah, Duncan the Small, the Prince of Dragonflies. Oh my god, I'm so fucking smart. I don't know if it's
Alright.
smart or just obsessed with the book series. But yeah, he was the first son of Aegon, and Jenny of Oldstones was the wife. And there was many songs written about her, including Jenny's song, which is Jenny of Oldstones from the show, and which the Ghost of High Heart always wants to hear.
But why? Is she Jenny?
So she was friends with the High Heart. Jenny was friends with the Woods Witch, whom she considered one of the children of the forest, a dwarf woman who Jenny brought to court. And she was the one who prophesied the prince that was promised would be born from Ares. So the Ghost of High Heart. All right. Jeff is getting really uninterested, but this is crazy. The Ghost of High Heart was brought to King's Landing by Jenny, who is Duncan's daughter-in-law. Egg's daughter-in-law. Fuck.
Yes.
Married to his son Duncan. Duncan's wife Jenny brings her to King's Landing, and she is the one who prophesies Rhaegar is going to be the prince who was promised. Well, she prophesizes that it's going to be of Ares' line.
Yes.
Which could mean any future generation, right? And that's all that the Ghost of High Heart, who Arya meets. It's all fucking tied together, baby.
What did she say to Arya? You're gonna kill a bunch of people? I forget.
Yeah, she like starts screaming when she sees Arya. That like she's like covered in death or something.
You're gonna close a lot of
No,
eyes.
that's from the show.
Eyes that you're gonna close.
All right, so all that shit, literally all that shit. Find out who the Ghost of High Heart is. More about Jenny. Fucking all the shit about how they trying to hatch dragons. That's all the Summerhall mystery. That's why people can't wait till we find out more about it. And just like a really interesting cap to the end of Egg's life, who we get to go through the Duncan Egg novels with. Sweet little boy, does he go mad, or is he actually trying to do good and something goes terribly wrong? You know what I mean?
He's going mad.
Somebody's planted the wildfire. Also, we just want to give another shout out to @Terrible Existence again. We always like when our subscribers and listeners write in and
Much
want us to
love.
talk about stuff. Makes it much more enjoyable than just hearing Nelson ramble on for over an hour. So keep writing in, keep asking us questions, or not even questions, because you probably know more than we do. We just like talking about it. So see you next up.
Thanks, everybody.
Peace out.